Hey guys, Mr. Bowman here. Today's learning objective is in yellow and we are learning to apply the angle properties of regular polygons. So regular polygons are the key part of today's learning objective. So regular polygons, and just a reminder, these are different to the previous video on irregular polygons. So regular polygon, all sides and angles are the same. So as an example, if you had an equilateral triangle, all three of the sides would be the same length and all three of the internal angles would be 60 degrees. That's an example of a regular polygon because all the sides are the same, all of the angles are the same. You could also think of maybe a regular pentagon. So you've got the two sides going down here, one going across, one going across. If all the sides were the same, all of the angles inside the shape would be 108 degrees. 108 there as well. And that there would be another example of a regular polygon. We also learned about the angles or internal angles of polygons. And just a reminder from the previous video, that was 180 n minus 2. And that n, hopefully you remember what it stands for, but that was the number of sides that the shape has. And the last thing we need to go through, and this is the most important part for today, is how can we use the properties of regular polygons and the internal angles of polygons to actually find. So finding internal angles of regular polygons. So that's the important thing that we're going to focus on today. So I'm going to be pausing the video. I'm going to draw a couple of diagrams and examples to go through, and hopefully this cements our understanding of regular polygons. We've got our three questions. The first thing you need to do, we're going to start on question A. Let's say we're interested in this angle here, that there is maybe, call that A degrees. How do we go about finding out what that angle is? So your first step you need to do is how many sides do you have? And in our case, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got 6 sides. That information we're then going to use for our 180 n minus 2 rule that we learned in our previous video. So it's going to be 180, 6 minus 2. That's going to be 180 times 4. And that there is going to be 720 degrees. So what that tells us is all of the angles inside the shape. So if we add on this angle here, maybe we'll call that, or ignore that, we add on this angle, this angle, this angle, and this angle. So all of those internal angles are going to add, well, they're going to be the exact same. So we jot that down. Angles in a 6-sided regular polygon sum to 720 degrees. Now the next step, what we know about these angles, because it's a regular polygon, all of the angles are going to be the exact same. So what we're going to do is that 720, we're going to divide it by 6 because we've got 6 angles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That actually relates to the number of sides. So 6 sides, 6 angles. 12 sides, 12 angles. So 720 divided by 6, that's going to be 120 degrees. And that tells us what angle A is. It actually tells us what every angle inside that shape is going to be. Every angle is going to be 120 degrees. So I'm going to write A is equal to 120 degrees. And the reason, internal angles in a regular polygon are equal. So all of them are the exact same. So for those two reasons, 6-sided shapes come to 720, and all of the angles being equal, we were able to figure out that A is equal to 120 degrees. That's our first shape. These are fairly complicated, but let's have a go at another one. So Question number B. First step, you need to figure out how many sides do we have. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that's our first step. We have 12 sides. Our second step, like we did in that previous question, we want to find out, well, what's the total angles going to be? So I'm going to write down my formula, 180 n minus 2, and that's going to be equal to 180, 12 minus 2, 180 times 10, and that there is going to be 1800 degrees. And what that tells us is the angles in a 12-sided shape, or a 12-sided regular polygon, sum to 1800 degrees. So we'll write that down. Angles in a 12-sided regular polygon add to 1800 degrees. So once we've done that, we've now, like our first question, we're going to divide that 1800 into 12, because there are 12 sides, which means there are 12 angles, which means we can chop 1800 in 12. So we're going to go 1800 divided by 12, and that there is going to be 150 degrees. So that means all of the internal angles are going to sum to that much. We haven't got a letter that to relate it to, but we can leave our final answer as 150 degrees. And don't forget about your reasoning. So the reason that last thing, or the reason we could divide it by 12, is because all the internal angles of a regular polygon are equal. There we go. So that was question B. So a bit trickier because we didn't have the A given to us. We're now moving on to the very final question. We've been trying to find out angle x in this question. And what we can see is we can see a straight line going across here. And we can see x and the angle on the inside, they add, well, they're on the straight line, which means they're going to add to 180 degrees. So I don't know what this angle is. So I'm going to call it angle y. But angle y is an internal angle of this regular polygon. So I need to find out what angle y is. Once I've found out what angle y is, I can then figure out what angle x is. So we're using the straight line rule here, but it could be angles around a point. It could be vertically opposite angles. Could be angles in a triangle. Could be any of the other angle rules integrated or linked in with our regular polygon. But first step, let's find out how many sides we got. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We got 7 sides. So that's actually a heptagon. So 7 sides. So we're going to go 180 n minus 2 because we want to find out the total number of angles. 180, 7 minus 2, which is going to be 180 times 5, which is going to be 900 degrees. So the total angles in a 7-sided shape, they're all going to add up to 900 degrees. So we'll write that down. Angles in a 7-sided regular polygon sum to 900 degrees. So we've done that. We're now going to do our next step, and that's when we chop it up into portions. So we know all of the angles in our shape add to 900. We know there's 7 of them, so we're going to divide 900 into lots of 7. And this one here, I'm grabbing my calculator out. 900 divided by 7 comes up with a messy decimal, but make sure you round it appropriately. So 128.7 degrees, and that had a 1 dp rounding. Don't forget your reasoning. Why can we do that? Internal angles of a regular polygon are equal. And that gives us y. So we know that is 128.7 degrees. So let's write that in, 128.7 degrees. We now can calculate x. So what we're going to do is we're going to go 180 minus 128.7. I'm grabbing my calculator out to do that. 180 minus 128.7. That gets me to 51.3 degrees. So that there, so x is equal to that there, 51.3. Don't forget that's affected by a 1 dp rounding before. And finally, I can state my reasoning. Angles on a straight line, hopefully you remember this, sum to 180 degrees. There we go. So a fairly long video. I do apologize about the length, but it was really important to step through all the questions in quite a lot of detail. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Hopefully you found it helpful. Now let's get into heaps and heaps of practice.